Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Hello and welcome in. Today is September 20th. My favorite 49er fan, it is his birthday. My father, Mr. Larry, Dr. Reverend Larry Marino, is 71 today. Happy birthday, Pop. So it is almost game day. I am not in my studio or anything. I am. Mike B says I'm on the injury report. Yes, I do. And I'm still congested a little bit. Don't make me laugh, guys, that much.
You're on the injury report with all the other 49ers.
Right. We'll get into that. We will get into that. I do have COVID. I did test positive earlier in the week, and I am very tired. But I texted Johnny last night. Nothing was going to stop me. I missed you guys. I wanted to come hang out, and I wanted to just talk 49ers. I know we got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to get into. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes for my dad. I'll make sure he watches the show later. My folks are still in California. As you know, my family and I went to California for the Jets game. Since they are retired, they're going to stay with my godparents well into October, and I think they're going to go to the Chiefs game. So they are sleeping right now. My dad actually has COVID as well. I don't know who gave it to who, but he's doing okay. He's just tired. So I'll make sure my mom and dad see this later. But yes, thank you guys for all the get wells, quick football, all you guys. Thanks for boosting the algorithm. Dawn is here. Thank you so much. But one of the reasons I wanted to get on too was to give Johnny some more props, because we had a chance to tell you guys that he signed his one-day contract with sports.
It was a tough negotiation process.
Yeah,
it was almost as tough as the Brandon Ayuk one. I was not going to hold out. They had the contract on the table for 2 weeks, and I said, I'm not going into 3 weeks like Brandon Ayuk did.
Yeah,
I'm going to sign this sucker. It was mostly symbolic, but we came to terms. It had to do with how many brown M&Ms were going to be available at the time, how many lukewarm water bottles and cold water bottles. It was a tough negotiation process down at the end. We ended up settling on some chamomile tea, and we found a middle ground. But
okay.
We're excited. I'm excited, to be a part of what they're doing there. They're doing some great stuff, and just felt the energy and wanted to be in the room with that. Know that they're on a mission to do something great, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is get a lot of content creators. If you check out on YouTube, Sports Idiot Nation, and Johnny has a clip, because any chance we have to smack talk the Cowboys, especially after losing like that at home earlier last week to Michael Jackson. Hopefully you understand that reference, because their quarterback, the Saints quarterback, got fined for doing a Michael Jackson impersonation. But hey, if you play that well, against the Cowboys at home, you're allowed to do that, and I think he can afford it. So Sports Idiot Nation, first of all, you can see we're coming up on 3,000 subscribers, and I will remind you
Wow.
that the channel started August 1st, and we have almost 3,000 subscribers. And the most popular video is with Adriana, who is on this very show. And we always feel bad for her because she is a New York Giant fan. And so our heart goes out to her. But that episode with her is almost 10 up to 10,000 views. And so
Wild.
we're excited.
Adriana killing it.
Yeah.
They saw her face on there, and people were much more interested in watching that than mine.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. Your episode just came out yesterday. So I think we have a clip, and you guys can see if you have not checked out, which shout out to Technic Chick, because not only I know have you watched, but you've been commenting in on those videos. I really appreciate you. And I tell the guys, Miles and TI from the show, I brag about you like, hey, I got 49er fans checking in with Sports Idiot Nation. So definitely Technic Chick, like, thank you so much. Keep it up, share it with people. But yeah, Johnny, show the clip real
well,
quick. We'll get
so
into
we have to
Niners.
set the stage here that the entire conversation, this entire episode, and the reason I was brought on was because we were talking about teams of the decades and how they would stack up against each other. So you had the Packers of the 60s, the Steelers of the 70s, the 49ers of the 80s, the Cowboys of the 90s, and then the Patriots of both the 2010s or 2000s, the
Yeah.
2000s and 2010s. And so we got to the section on the Cowboys, and everybody been talking about, why the Cowboys might be the best out of there or might not be the best out of there. And then they got to me, and this was what my response was and how I felt of about the Cowboys of the 90s. So here we go.
Guys,
Johnny, would you give any flowers to Dallas?
Well, so here's my issue with Dallas. We're talking about a team of a decade, right? Well, how do you consider a team of a decade when they only were really there for half a decade? I mean, the Cowboys, it was really 92, 93, 94, 95. Those were the years. Nobody talks about. There's a reason why the Packers and 49ers still have a rivalry from the 97 and 98 years. And it's not with the Cowboys from those years. Where were the Cowboys? If they're the team of the 90s, why does nobody remember what you did in between 1996 and 1999? That you weren't even in consideration for a Super Bowl. You weren't even in a consideration for being a team to beat in the playoffs. How can you be a
Ouch.
team of a decade?
it's true. I mean,
when you have that,
Packers were back to back,
they had a top 8, they had a top 5 defense nearly every year of the 90s, and they had multiple years where they were not even in consideration. Nobody thought, oh yeah, the Cowboys, you got to watch out for them. It was why Cowboys fans are still angry today, is because the last time they won was in 95 off the remnants, the shadow, bringing Dion away from the 49ers. They didn't beat the 49ers. They took Dion away from the 49ers. And partially Dion wanted to go and hang out with the extracurriculars that were over at the Cowboys and, the $35 million. But that was it. I mean, when you have an owner like Jerry Jones who fires a coach like Jimmy Johnson, and that just tears the whole franchise down and has never been able to put the pieces back together.
Yeah, such a great point. I mean, I didn't think of it that way when you talk about Dallas and that they were only good for that little bit, whereas most of the other rivalries, or not rivalries, dynasties, I should say, were more dominant through that decade. That even though none of those teams won the Super Bowl all 10 years, the relevance factor and how Dallas really truly dropped off. I had truly never thought about that, but leave it to Johnny Dell to break it down, the hows and whys, and just, man, that was really fun.
And when you look at like the 49ers of the 80s, we talked with Jesse Sapolo when he came on. He came on to that team and ended up starting for that team and was like, he was not excited necessarily about coming onto the 49ers as a rookie because he was like, this is a team that is already stacked. I don't have a place, but he ended up coming in, being a great player, getting on, and he wasn't there for the first Super Bowl. There's a reason he doesn't have 5 Super Bowls. He's got 4. And so, you see that there was turnover and there was different players. That Dallas team was a team. The 49ers were multiple iterations of different teams and a different head coach during that time that won all those Super Bowls. The Patriots have their teams. The team in 2001 that won the Super Bowl was very, very different from the team that won the Super Bowl. It was 2007 that had won the Super Bowl then, or was it 2005? Those teams were very different. When you look at the Patriots teams in the 2010s, their first Super Bowl win in the decade, their last Super Bowl win in the decade are different teams. The Cowboys team was the same team with other than, they brought Dion on in 96. I just don't see them as a team of the decade. I see them as a group of guys for a few years that they were able to hold together. But again, once the salary cap came in, that really was the nail in the coffin for Dallas as a dynasty for the rest of the decade, much like it was for the 49ers. I mean, I'm in the 90s. Let's be real about that that salary cap coming in 94 really hampered the team for the next 8 years. And they had to, pay their dues off of that and go into cap hell for a while. But yeah, and I hate hearing Dallas as team of the 90s because you can almost make the argument that the Packers were a team in the 90s or the Broncos were the team in the 90s. I mean, they won 2 Super Bowls. Dallas won 3. So one more Super Bowl during that time over another team makes you the team of the decade and the other team not. It's more like the Cowboys were the team of the early 90s. The Broncos were the team of the late 90s. Really, that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I've never thought about it that way until you said that. So again, just speaks to I'm truly a fan of you, Johnny, and your content, and happy to be doing this with you. Thanks again for the support, guys. Remember, supporting this channel, show Niner fans your phone, show them the YouTube channel. We have 11,000 views on his latest breakdown. I feel like the losses sometimes don't get as much views because everyone's just so brokenhearted about it. But there were a lot of key factors that you see watching that video of, man, so many missed opportunities for sure. And we just simply ran out of time. We lost by 1 possession, but make sure you check out the videos of the breakdown of the film and that you show people. Let's get into the up to the minute report on, do we have 53 players available? I really don't know.
Right now, well, remember that you can have 53 players, but there's only 46 that are going to be active. I think the bigger question is, are we going to have 46 active on game day? Right now, I mean, you have a lot of guys on injury. So our injured reserve, we right now have 5 players on injured reserve. You have Elijah Mitchell, Ambry Thomas, Christian McCaffrey, John Feliciano, and Kalia Davis. Now, again, the injuries are actually showing, because I think the biggest thing we all asked about was Zach with the super chat. He's poking the bear. We'll get to that. After preseason, everyone was like, why did we keep Ambry Thomas? Get rid of this bum. Like, we have better players. Charvarius Ward ended up on the injury report this week. That's exactly why you hold on to an Ambry Thomas, because you have that kind of issue or injury potential down the road at the end of the season. You don't want to be in November, December pulling a practice squad guy up to be one of your corners or signing a guy off the street that has to learn your defense. Remember, their scars get them. They have had corners go down late in the year, and that's a problem. They've lost multiple corners every single year. So they keep any guy who knows their defense and that they believe in at least a little bit there. But we have, I mean, other than that, you do have some guys that are it's very concerning. You have Deebo Samuel is on the injury report, calf injury, probably gonna miss multiple weeks, probably calf strain. You had George Kittle show up on the injury report. hamstring tightness. Don't know what that means about his availability. Charvarius Ward, same thing. Hamstring, not sure. Those are three guys that come out and you go, wait a minute, this isn't good. We're not liking this. So what does that mean? That means Jacob Cowing, because you still have Ricky Pearsall on the non-football injury. Jacob Cowing has got to step up. And rookie coming in, it's your time. You got to get in there.
We talked about Shanahan having a rookie returning punts, and I know I was sick Monday. We didn't get a chance to talk about the game, but yikes. When he went in there, I was like, I know I jinxed it. I apologize to the faithful because I said, uh-oh. And this is why I wanted Trent Taylor. We talked about this.
It's why I took some heat on X during training camp. I said I felt like Trent Taylor was in the pole position at wide receiver over Chris Conley because of the safety blanket as a returner. And you saw exactly why there. Now, thankfully, we did not turn the ball over.
Yeah.
But again, you understand why from a coach's perspective. And also what I talked about, when you turn it over on special teams, you are almost guaranteed to lose. And so what happened? We had a blocked punt. That was the difference in the game. It's the one score difference in the game. So you can understand why people would say you don't hold Trent Taylor on your team just for special teams. You go, well, this is why coaches have that even as a thought process. I agree that I'm glad Chris Conley's on the team and Trent Taylor is not. I agree with that, but I understand the thought process behind I want a safety blanket. Jacob Cowing showed enough during training camp and preseason where they started to feel more comfortable with him. If he muffs another punt, they're going to start to feel really uncomfortable with him. And that's when you start having a lot of questions, because again, if you muff a punt, you are almost guaranteed to lose. Super Bowl. I hate to bring it up. The other question is, we are real thin at running back, a position that was looking like the deepest position on the team in training camp has suddenly become one of the thinnest positions. And now I didn't pull the clip, but it was a really good clip. I should have, that Chris Furster had talking about, and it was a great question. I was so thankful that Jordan Elliott was there to ask this question. He asked some of the best questions there in the presser, and he watches the film and he knows what he's looking at. And so he brought up Isaac Guerendo's zone run, and I pointed it out on my video that, it wasn't there. And Chris Furster did talk about, he goes, one of the biggest problems we have with guys first getting into our zone run system is that they want to cut it back too soon. And he goes, and you can watch he talked about watching the stripe on their helmet from the film, of coming in. He goes, once you see that stripe turn too early before that third step, he's cutting it back. And that's what opposing defenses are looking for. Sometimes they can't see a guy's face, but they can see the top of the helmet and that stripe going down the middle. And they're going to be watching, does that stripe turn? And once that stripe turns, he's turning. And so they're looking for that. And he goes, they really have to press the line. They have to press that hole, because if you don't, the linebacker's not going to move to meet you. And you have to move with them, because then that sets up your cutback block for your lineman to get up on the second level. So you got to keep pressing the line, keep pressing the line, keep pressing the line. And it's hard for them to learn that patience. Do we have time for Guerendo or Patrick Taylor to learn this? Both of these guys don't have a lot of experience. I mean, Patrick Taylor's been in the league for 4 years, but he hasn't been with the 49ers for 4 years. Guerendo is a rookie. You were expecting Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell to be your veterans. Elijah Mitchell cannot stay on the field. So, what do you have to look at? Are we going to try and stash Patrick Taylor on practice squad, after this week, and bring in Matt Breida again, somebody who's been in the system, has been in the wide zone? I don't know. How comfortable are they with Guerendo and Patrick Taylor? It kind of reminds you of Trey Sermon, when Trey Sermon just could not get down this wide zone, and they tried to force that. I remember it was the Packers game. He was our number one running back in the Packers game. It was 2021, and we lost that game. And it was the same game that Diamador Lenore got sat down because Aaron Rodgers and beat us in the last 40 seconds of the game. but we could not run the ball for nothing in that game. And Trey Sermon was in there, and they were trying to get him worked up to run this wide zone, and it was terrible. He didn't understand how to press the line of scrimmage. He didn't understand the timing of the wide zone, and that's why he didn't work out with the 49ers. Can Isaac Guerrero be that? I'm not closing the door on Guerrero. He is very young, very few reps in here, got injured during training camp. He doesn't have those valuable reps. The question is, if, God forbid, something happened to Jordan Mason in this game, can you run your offense at all? You don't have Deebo Samuel as your receiver. You don't have George Kittle maybe as a tight end. Suddenly now you're saying we don't have a run game and we're missing the top 2 of our 3 passing threats. That becomes, my biggest thing is, God, the firestorm would be unreal around Brock Purdy if that were to happen, because everyone would say, well, this just shows without all of his weapons. You take away any team's top 5 offensive threats, and they're going to look different. They're not going to be as successful. But the only positive on that is that the Rams themselves, their defense is not the same as it was last year. You lose Ernest Jones, you lose Aaron Donald, the maybe the best defensive player on the planet. You lose Aaron Donald. And Ernest Jones, as far as I understand, talked to some people familiar with the Rams organization, that there was just some issues there with Ernest Jones. I won't go into the specifics on that because I was asked not to. But there was a reason they traded him. It wasn't just like, it's not working out with the contract negotiations. They pulled their contract negotiations from him and traded him away. There were some things they really didn't like there. But if this was a get-right game and a game you could weather some injuries, it's the Rams game. But again, this should be an automatic win game. My biggest thing is we say, we're going to get these injuries out at the beginning of the year. We have an easier schedule. We can weather that. The problem is if you don't, because the schedule at the back end of the schedule, like at end of the year, is much more difficult. Can you afford? You can't afford to lose some of these games. Minnesota was a game that you really should not have been able to afford to lose, because you need to get that one in, because you're going to be playing the Bills. You're going to be playing the Chiefs. You're going to be playing the Dolphins. You're going to be playing a lot. Now, the Dolphins may be a different situation altogether considering their quarterback situation, but you're playing some good teams at the end of the year. You really need to, have, and the Cardinals are looking much better than they were. You got the Packers at the end of the year. Like, you really need to nail down this early part of the year. Give yourself some room, some margin of error near the end of the season to where you aren't, scraping to get that number 1 seed.
Yeah. And as we look to the Rams game, as we go to
well, real quick, let's jump back to our super chat here, because I don't want to pass up Zach. I mean, this is worth some talking about. He's dropping the big super chat in here. The other Monday, I missed his super chat and I felt so bad about it because I was one manning it, and I kept jumping between my tabs, my notes chat tab and the chat tab, and I missed it. I mentioned the other 2 super chats, but thank you so much, Zach. He's a huge supporter, a good friend of the channel, and we have a lot of good conversations between each other that are so fun. I'm so thankful for him and what he does and his support, and some of the conversations we can have is super fun. He says, not sure what was worse for the NFL, salary cap or 2 deep safeties. Did you hear this week, Adam?
No.
So Mel Kiper on ESPN, because the data out right now is showing that the NFL has fewer passing touchdowns, fewer passing yards.
Yes.
That that offenses in the NFL are less explosive this year than they have been in a long time. And Mel Kiper came out on ESPN and he said what the NFL really needs to do for that is ban 2 high safeties, any 2 high safety defense. And I'm like, what? One, I was like, okay. I've lost all respect for, I didn't have a whole lot coming into this, but that right there shows me how little Mel Kiper actually does know about football. That is astonishing for somebody who, for years, many people held in really high regard as a draft guru. If you don't understand what that all entails, when you say 2 high defenses, my goodness, you're talking about cover 4, you're talking about cover 6, you're talking about Palms coverage,
I was
you're
just going to say
talking about
Palms.
cover 2, you're talking about Tampa 2, you're talking about cover 7, you're talking about cover 8. Like
Everyone
what
has
are
to play the
you,
46.
you're talking about 2-man. Like what are we, are you, what you're saying no to? You're talking about so many different coverages. This isn't just one coverage. It's not just like, oh, we're going to take one kind of defense out of the game. You're talking about half the defenses in the NFL.
More than half.
And it's not like this too high is a new thing. It's meant for short passing. Like that's the idea. Too high started to come in around the same by Bud Carson with the Steelers in the early 70s. That's when cover 2 really came around. And then this really moved into league. Cover 2 really started to come in the league in the 80s against the 49ers because they were so horizontal in their passing attack that you saw so many teams saying, okay, when we have this horizontal passing attack, this is one way that we can account for that better. You get 5 underneath zone defenders and 2 deep zone defenders. And then as we move into the 90s, you have Tony Dungy come up with the Tampa 2, which is a way to have a transitioning. It can either be 2 high or 3 high, really, is how it functions. And you have these different iterations of it. And now you get cover 6 and you get cover 4 and lots of the stuff that Fangio did in the 80s into the 90s of cover 4s that are considered too high. I'm like, no, these have been around a long time. Yes, they're being played differently, but this is why offensive coaches are paid as well. This is why what teams would do, a la the Broncos, was of the 90s, was run the ball more, run the ball better. Because when you don't have a safety in the box, guess what? You can run the ball better. It's a better matchup for that. One of the reasons that Fangio's defense usually with the 49ers back in the Harbaugh era was so tough was because they could go too high and they could still stop you from running the ball. But that was a very exceptional defense. There's very few of those defenses around in the NFL in any era. And so being able to do that is an exceptional thing, and they should have an advantage because they were amazing and they were so good. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, and people talking about and starting circulating. Like, yeah, we should get rid of those too high. We need more scoring, man. Like that's where it goes. I just don't fully understand. Like, why this is the dumbest conversation, and it needs to be put away. And just of like, no. And I love how Zach's making fun of it. Mel Kiper, it's time, buddy. It's like that scene in the Goodfellas. They walk him into the room and he looks in, there's nobody in there. It's just time, Mel Kiper. I'm not, that's a joke, everybody. It's an illusion,
Man,
not illusion, an illusion. So I just don't want people, all of a sudden reporting me for threats of violence or something.
Man, I don't even know where to go from there other than to say, like, look, this is why you need to like and subscribe so that you can see Johnny on full Johnny. This is full display here. So yes, again, thank you to Zach. I will say one thing on Johnny's behalf because he's not going to say it himself, but he works with kids, and I just think that this channel, that the income that comes from it really truly helps his family and his beautiful children. And he's not going to go out there and say, hey, please give me a super chat, but I can because I want the money to go to him. So I will tell you guys, those super chats do mean a lot to him and his family, because he's not able to spend so much time on doing these videos and to podcast with my silly self for free. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So we really appreciate when you guys do that. Even a couple bucks here and there, it means a lot. So thank you, of course, to Zach, who has been doing it since the very beginning.
All-star. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he is. He truly is. So thank you, Zach. But again, I wanted to make my little plea to you guys on Johnny's behalf. So let's get into the Rams game. It's going to be fun to see a sea of red per usual down there. the one thing that COVID has enabled me to do is to be on the couch and watch plenty of YouTube. And I've been watching Lombardi's stuff. My folks and I are big fans of his.
David, correct?
Well, yes. I mean, do I
Okay.
even need to? Come on.
Well, I mean, there's Michael Lombardi.
Yeah, and why? Come on. This is a Niner.
I'm just saying.
Yes,
Ties
of
to the
course.
49ers organization.
Yes, of course. So I love his content, and he threw up something on the screen that
Not the kind of throw up you were doing, though.
no, come on, no. Something that you've gone over is where it's like a flow chart where the farther the X and the Y axis, and the farther you are to the right, the better is, and farther up you are. And what he was showing was offensive line and defensive line. And we were kind of right in the middle, along with most teams. And then he showed on the screen, he's like, well, you may say, where are the Rams? They weren't even on the screen. They were so bad. He had to navigate his screen, and they were way to the left of pass protection and getting to the quarterback and all that. It was so bad. And we know that they're depleted too. But then I thought, okay, this looks good. Then all of a sudden I saw Bosa on the injury report. I'm like, well, okay, backups against backups. Is it scheme against scheme at this point, or do we have guys that you think truly are, can get the job done?
I think Bosa's going to play. So Bosa's injury kind of shows up on the injury report. I think it's more of a bruise because there was a play. It was the same play Justin Jefferson got injured on. Fred Warner got kind of tied up in there.
Yeah.
Nick Bosa got tied up in there, and it looked like a bruise. He finished the game. So, what Justin Jefferson was out. Bosa finished the game. I don't think Bosa's is going to be so serious that he doesn't miss the game. I would hope to goodness not. So I think where I want to see is if you looked at the pressure rates and win rates against pass rush win rates in the NFL after week 2, Aiden Hutchinson was second in the league. He was near the top. And why? Because he played week 1 against that Rams offensive line because they had a third string tackle who is going to be the same guy that Nick Bosa goes against, or even Leonard Floyd. I think there's, maybe a little bit that Floyd wants to get back at the Rams for, letting him go off to Buffalo. It's going to be a time to feast there. One thing that we've seen from Stafford, and we know from Stafford, if you give him time, he's going to do well, and he's going to do very, very well. He's a great quarterback. If you get him under pressure, he will give you opportunities to pick the ball off. As long as you don't drop them, not to bring up bad wounds, as long as you don't drop some of those arm punts, he will give you those opportunities. So if you can get after him a lot, he's going to give you opportunities to take the ball away. We need to capitalize on those. Now, on the other side of their defensive line, I think they're a little bit better than their line play shows there. They're struggling with pass rush right now because they haven't been able to really stop the run. And a lot of that has to do with, again, Roseboom to me is not a great linebacker. He's a liability. That they have problems in their on their linebacker core because they were expecting Ernest Jones to be the guy. He was their speed guy at linebacker, and they're missing that. And you don't have an Aaron Donald, but they have Braden Fisk, who I think by the end of the year will be a very, very good defensive tackle. I remember I went to the Senior Bowl. I did not know who this kid was. Watched him through the individual drills, through the one-on-ones, through the team period. Came away so impressed with Braden Fisk. I think most people had him as like a 4th-round pick going into the Senior Bowl. And I remember coming out of that saying, I would be willing to spend a high to trade up and get a high second to get this kid, was how I felt about him. And that's exactly what the Rams did. Is that they moved up and they went and got Braden Fisk. I think he's a very good defensive tackle, will develop into that. So you got to be prepared for him. And they also have, it's 91. I'm forgetting his name right now. He's and Chris Forster talked about him in the presser, said that, he's got a guy you need to know where he's at. Now, this is not the same where you spend half of your time during the week knowing where Aaron Donald is and building your game plan around Aaron Donald. This isn't the same defense on that. Now, they are also very banged up at corner. So again, that hurts your pass rush when your corners can't really cover. So again, this is a good game, I think, that sets up for, if you're going to get Jacob Cowing in there, that you're going to do all right. What we need to see is a little bit better of a game from Dominic Pooney. He had that kind of welcome to the NFL rookie game against the Vikings, but everything that he's put on tape before then is very, very good. So, let's just get let's get that nailed back down. We need to get some of our receivers running the correct routes, because there was a couple times where receivers weren't on the right routes. There was a couple times where Brock Purdy didn't pull the trigger. There was a couple times where the offensive line didn't do their job, but the whole thing has to work together for good pass protection and to not give up 6 sacks. You can't have that. You just can't. That's unacceptable. And so we got a clip here that we'll talk about a little bit from Chris Forster talking about that. And in that, he gave a really good nugget, and it was story time, because I love story time with Chris Forster. He gave a little nugget on that in his presser yesterday. So we're gonna jump to this clip real quick.
But it is a group effort. Everything has to come together. Can I tell one more story real quick? I'm sorry. We were here in 2015. It was an epic season. Jim Tomsula's one season here, and we went in to do an offensive meeting, and we talked pass protections. And my assistant had never coached the NFL. He goes, "Hey, Furry," he goes, "Man," he goes, "We're gonna have a good year pass pro, man. We're gonna do a good job." I said, "Dude, let's just wait till the next part of the meeting." Got the next part of the meeting. They talked about the routes, and it was the quarterback coach, the tight end coach, the receiver coach, running back coach, and nobody's fault. They never worked together. So it was the most disjointed pass game. And I looked at Bro. I said, "Bro, we're giving up 50 sacks this year. There ain't no way. Doesn't matter how well we block them. It's going to take a long time to get this all tied together." And we were uncertain at quarterback, receivers, all over the board. And we weren't very good. We got fired at the end of the season as a result of it. We couldn't throw the football, and it's the way it goes. So there's just so many pieces to it.
That's such an interesting conversation in there, just a little glimpse into it of him as offensive line coach here at San Francisco in 2015 during the Tomsula era, and knowing they were going to be terrible throwing the ball. Like, just knew it from the beginning, and we're giving up 50 sacks. It's happening. We're not, our quarterback is not going to be able to handle all these changes. We have all these routes. These guys are not going to be on time. It's not going to be together. Wow. That really does speak a lot of volumes to the state of how things were at that time. I think part of it was you had a lot of guys who, if you were coming from outside the building to come work here, this was not an attractive place to work. And so you were piecing an offensive staff together, and you have a coach who was a defensive line coach who did not understand how to put together an offensive staff.
Scapegoat. He was set up to fail from the beginning. However, he could have helped himself out, and he simply didn't do that. It was just a bad time for the faithful.
A flatulent time.
Yeah. So let's get to happier thoughts. Is there something else that the Rams do with all the things that they cannot do? Is there anything that you're like, actually, this is something that we need to be careful about or watch out for? Which is fair for you to say no. I don't.
Well, look, Sean McVay is a very good offensive mind. I know there's a lot of things that we've gone back, and I think it has more to do with fan talk of, my dad could beat up your dad, where Sean McVay versus Kyle Shanahan. So because I see this on social media a lot, that Sean McVay is a better coach than Kyle Shanahan. He's won a Super Bowl, and Kyle Shanahan's the better guy. He owns, Sean McVay is his little kid. These are two guys. They're good friends. They've known each other a long time. They both have different approaches to how they really go about setting up their offenses and doing all that. Sean McVay is a very good coach, and he's just because it's no insecurity for us and slide on Kyle Shanahan to say that Sean McVay is a very good coach. Kyle Shanahan's a very good coach. They're both very good coaches, and they both really do understand offensive football. They have different approaches, and that's fine. They both come from the same offense, out of the same offense roots. But you can't let Sean McVay start getting into a rhythm and get going, because when he does, he's as good of a play caller as there is in the NFL, and he knows what he's doing. So, their offense is still a threat. He's something that you can't take lightly. You can't just walk into a game and be like, oh yeah, we own their offensive line. That's all of a sudden how you give up a 97-yard touchdown pass. I mean, it just is. So you can't take it lightly. You can't assume that just because they're depleted that they don't have Puka Nacua, they don't have Cooper Kupp, all of a sudden now, that's when they start getting you with some guys that you didn't know their name, who were sitting there saying, I'm going to prove that I belong in the NFL this week.
Right. They got Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, they still have Stafford. They still have a great offensive play caller, and you get too predictable on offense. You just line up, say, all right, well, we can just run cover 3 all game. They ain't gonna be able to do anything. They're gonna dice you up. You say, all right, well, we're gonna play man. We'll be all right. We're a good matchup on these receivers. Suddenly, there's a guy who they thought that suddenly, like Puka Nacua, who emerged, was not an early round draft pick last year, suddenly emerges and is like, oh my gosh, this guy's catching 14 passes and he's chewing us up. And it's a closer game than we ever thought it would be. Handle business, dominate on both sides of the ball, get after it, be on your details, be on your landmarks, be on your responsibilities, be on your reads. You cannot let that offense, because that offense is the thing that will win them the game if it happens. You can't let this be a shootout. You need to get them down early and get him down. And much like Shanahan talked about when they brought some Navy SEALs in to talk about finishing and that you need to fight. They brought in some Navy SEALs to talk to the team, was it like 3 years ago? And the guy was like literally describing how he killed a guy and held his head underwater. And it's just like, you have to sit there and that guy's going to be fighting for his life and you're fighting for yours. And you have to bury their head under there and have no remorse. And it was Kyle's like, it was really graphic. And I think it was maybe 2019. Because Joe Staley was like, oh, it was pretty intense. But that's the approach you have to take with this team, is say, no, I can't let him back up, because if I do, he probably will knock me out. And and you can't have that. So you have to take that early, get on him, have that mentality when you walk into SoFi Stadium, is say, no, this is San Francisco Stadium. We're going to take this over. This is going to be ours, and we're going to dominate this from beginning to end.
Yeah, you look at, we're 1-1. We should be, it's just in Minnesota, it's one of those weird things, but you could easily, most NFL fans could watch the game and see that we missed an opportunity and we could be 2-0. And you look at like the Jets, okay, you look at who we played. Boy, the Jets looked good yesterday, which makes our win look even better. And you look at the rest of the league. I don't know if we believe in teams like the Saints quite yet. I know beating Dallas at Dallas is a big deal, but the NFL has shown so far, with the Eagles not looking that good, because Fort Wayne native, where I live and breathe right now, Jesse Bates with the game-saving interception,
game-sealing interception
was so cool to see.
Yeah.
He is truly not just an NFL player. He's a great player. He's an NFL top 100. I personally know the guy. It's so cool to see that. Anyway, love to see the Eagles lose. It's like there aren't those teams really out there like showing that they are going to be so far ahead of the pack. And so it's like, we can't lose these teams.
Through 2 weeks. Yeah, the parity through the first 2 weeks is really tight, and with so many teams looking like they're just, anything can happen. You have the 49ers. If there was a team that's an opening for another team to jump ahead of them, it's now, because the 49ers are very injured. If you're a team like the Vikings, you were saying this is our moment to seize an opportunity to be in the dance. And who knows what can happen when we do there? Who knows if we were to play San Francisco again in January in the playoffs, man, would we can beat these guys. And if we can beat them, we can beat anybody in it. Like that's where the NFL is right now. And I remember after week 1, we talked about it, and I talked to you that the 49ers just put a beating on the Jets. I said we're supposed to feel, and they've been showing this the last 2 weeks that is still the case. They have a really good defense. That 49ers show up on the field, not Minnesota. If the ones who showed up in Minnesota show up in LA, this is a problem. This is a problem for the early part of the season to be there for the next 2 months. I don't want to see us have another game where it's even close until the Chiefs game. And then it's like, we need to beat up on the freaking Chiefs. I'm so sick of seeing them losing to them. But that's a different conversation for a different time. This is a game you got to come out with a win. You just do.
And speaking of different conversation for a different time, a quick reminder that Johnny does talk about the Chiefs on the very episode. In case you missed earlier in the show, he showed a clip from Sports Idiot Nation, my other podcast that I run, and Johnny was a guest yesterday for yesterday's show, and we talked dynasties, and we talked about the Chiefs and how they're not really a dynasty quite yet, and Johnny didn't hold back. So make sure you check out that that show from Sports Idiot Nation. Make sure that you continue to show Niner fans this channel. Show it by going up to them, showing your phone, showing them the channel, showing them the breakdowns. We talked about the Minnesota breakdown was not as fun. Definitely the low point for me was watching the block punt. I don't know if I've ever seen you break down a special teams play like that. If you have, it's been a long time. And it was like, oh man, like we're giving really bad tape to other teams that can hone in on this, and like we have to clean that up. Like, oh my gosh, that looked really,
or otherwise
really
you're gonna see teams loop around like that. And really it sounds more complicated than it is, especially when I broke it down the way it is of first threat, second threat, third threat, fourth threat. But it's really just you got to tighten up and block inside out. I remember one time I was playing football in high school, and I got in a concussion that week, and I got 2 concussions when I was playing football, and I remember I got in a concussion that week, and I sat out all week, and I was the end man on field goal, and I remember it was the only practice I got that week, and I was still like a little loopy on it. I was cleared by the doctors, not saying anything was wrong, but went in, and I remember our coach, he put out there, he was like, he was trying to fire up our defense to practice some of the guys about practicing field goal blocking. He's like, if you guys don't block this, or if you guys block this field goal today, then we're going to do half our conditioning. Like normally we would run like 12 or 14 gassers. He's like, we're going to run half. We'll only run 7 today. And so the guys were jacked up. And I remember I was on the end, and the 2 guys in front of me played a game, and one guy came to my outside and they looped around, and I blocked the guy to the outside, and the guy came through and blocked the kick. I gave it up. That was on me. And I remember my coach grabbed me after that, and he was like, what were you doing? And I had to run the full 14 gassers. But he was like, what are you doing? Did you give that up so we wouldn't have to run? And I was like, no, sir. And it was a hard lesson, because he was like, you block the inside out. Never let the inside man. If they're going to go after you, make them go around. Like, take the long way. And that's exactly what happened here. You didn't block it inside out. You gave up too much space inside. Who cares if 26 loops around? He's not getting there in time. Like, let him go.
Right.
That was the thing. So, I understand where their mistake happened. I made that, but I was also 17. These guys are 24, 25, and been playing football
and getting paid. How much?
And getting paid a lot more than I was.
Yeah,
I was not paid nearly as much. But yeah.
Yeah. So a lot to worry about with special teams, with muffing a punt, with giving up that block. Also, special teams on return games. Sometimes we're not tackling them at the yard line that I would prefer.
And Debo, don't try and be a hero and take the ball out like that. There was so much pressing.
Well, he's out anyway,
game.
So.
But I mean, just meaning like there was so much pressing, and I talked about it. I was really fortunate to be able to hop on a Zoom call the other night with the presidents of the Niner Empire fan chapters. Joe Leonore does a great job with them. And if you're looking for a 49ers fan chapter, like they do get-togethers in local areas, they do community events, they do game watch parties. You can go to ninerempire.com and check them out. They're not sponsoring me. I just think what they do is phenomenal. I'm trying to get a hold of the guys in my area sometime to do something with them, but they invited me onto their Zoom channel, and I went through a couple plays, and one of them was a Jordan Mason run. It was 3rd and 3. I talked about this play on Ryan Hensley's show yesterday, but there was a play. It was a 25 power, which is running back in the 5-hole. Dominic Pooney pulls, and he's supposed to lead up. The way you block that, it's supposed to go through the 5-hole. Because you're leaving the outside corner unblocked, because he's the force defender. He's the guy. He's going to be protecting, like you almost consider the 11 hole or the 9 hole, way outside there, that he's going to be in there. So you don't worry about him, because the way this is blocked, if you block everything up, he's not even a factor. He's going to, if he makes the tackle, it's going to be 25, 30 yards down the field. Well, Jordan Mason sees a flash of color. He tries to bounce it outside. He runs right into Stephon Gilmore. It was 3rd and 3. You just need 3 yards, man. It's 25 power. Like, get in the 5-hole, stick your head down, which he does so great. He had space, I think, to get 3 yards. That cascades, because then the next play is 4th down, just on the Viking side of the 50. We don't get the first down there. On 4th down, it's a turnover on downs, like at midfield. That's a big play in the game. 3rd and 3, Jordan Mason, you're pressing it. You're trying for the home run shot, not the 3 yards in the first down. Debo Samuel, early in the game, he's trying to bring the ball out of the end zone. Just let it be a touchback, man. Everybody's letting it be a touchback. You get the ball at the 30. He pulls it out. You get a holding penalty at like the 15-yard line. It pushes you back to the 5-yard line or 10-yard line, something like that, or is it the 20, something like that. We had a bad holding penalty there. It pulls you back. Then you get a false start penalty. You're at your own 5. You've lost 25 yards. And the amount of yards we gained on that drive, you're kicking a field goal. Like, that 25 lost yards is the difference between us. And actually, it was the drive where we punted the ball and had the punt blocked. Like, you're not having your punt blocked. You're kicking a field goal. So those things are huge in the game. Like, yes, it just seems like, whatever. He brought it out. You brought it out. You shouldn't have. You get a holding penalty. You shouldn't have, because you shouldn't have had the ball taken back out. You get the false start. Now you're suddenly back 25 yards. That's a big deal. Things like that. It's those things in the game, because guys are pressing too hard. They're trying too hard to make a play, that you don't make the routine ones. Like, that's the stuff that you can't do against bad teams. You can't suddenly start panicking and say, I've got to make a play. We got to make a play, man. We got to make a play. You can't get that. You just settle down and say, no, we got this. We're going to do it. Let's get out there and execute. That's what I want to see from the team this week.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, I've been watching again on YouTube Lombardi, and people like the get right game. This is where we are a little depleted, but good Lord, if we complain about being depleted, then the Rams have so much more to complain about. But they're going to be playing very, very desperate, because they haven't won a game yet. And so it's like, man, they lost that opening night, Sunday night game against Detroit. And they just are super depleted compared to what we are. And so,
yeah. And they're a team that you don't want to face in the playoffs. It's what we've seen with the 49ers history. You don't want them being there in the playoffs as they get healthy, as their young guys get experience, as they are improving. Like, they're a team that could have that ascension at the end of the season based upon what's happened where they are, of getting Cooper Kupp back, getting Puka Nacua back. So, like, bury them now. 0-3,
yeah.
Really hard to get to the playoffs when you're 0-3. So, bury them now, end them, get it over with. Like, take them out back. Like, there we go. Just make it happen.
Yeah. So let's get into some. Well, first, before I get into score predictions Is there any other key factors that come to your mind that you want the faithful to know about, or are we ready for score predictions?
I think we're ready for score predictions. Yeah.
Okay, let's just get it
I
out
think
there.
we've
So
about covered all that ground.
So I am
Put your score prediction in the chat.
Yep, I'm going Niners 2014. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I just don't. I don't know what the over under is, but I would assume take the under just because it's just messy with the players that are not there, and I think we win by a possession. I don't know. That's me. What do you say, Johnny?
I think it's going to be 23-13. I think it's going to be a 2-score game. I think we have enough offensive juice. We're going to kick 3 field goals, score a couple touchdowns. I think half of our drives will end in some sort of score. I think we do. And because of that, I think we're going to get the ball, force a turnover at some point. So to give us a short field to help with that. Yes, we're depleted on offense a little bit. We still got our full offensive line. So we should still be able to run the ball, and we should still be able to block this defensive line. And, yes, we're not going to have some amazing playmakers, but you still have Brandon Ayuk. Of how are they going to cover Brandon Ayuk? Who on their side is going to match up well with him? Who's going to match up well with Juwan Jennings? Who's going to have the speed to run down Jacob Cowing, which I think he will get some reps in that game. Who's going to be who can even line up against Chris Conley and be a guy to just shut him down? I don't think they have that matchup. If they're just dropping in zone all game long, I think that with the way that they play in their scheme, that Shanahan is familiar enough with it, Brock Purdy's familiar enough with it, that he will have openings in that zone, and it's going to be there. They can't do that all game. They're going to have to go man. They can't cover in man. So they're going to have to try and slow us down with zone. It's not going to work as well. They're going to have to try and go cover 3 to stop the run. They're not going to be able to do that. As far as, be able to cover in that and stop the run. They're not going to be able to do that with their zones. I just don't see it. So, they're going to have moments. We're going to have some negative plays. I do believe that we'll have some negative plays that will stop some drives, but I do think that we will be able to produce enough on that side. On the defensive side, getting Hufanga back will be huge for the run game. He was always a great tackler. Was somebody who closed in space and aggressively, and allowing him to be a run support guy there is huge. I think Jair Brown is more of your deep middle safety. Now, he didn't do that against the Vikings. Needs to be better there. But I think getting Hufanga back will be huge. Now, will he be on a pitch count? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they have a rotation of
I think he
Odom,
will be.
Hufanga, and I mean, the guy has not played real football.
Yeah, he's not getting every play. There's no way.
What, 10 months? So
yeah.
He's not there. I don't see him being in there for 60 plays. Now, it also could be if you're forcing 3 and out all game long, that he does play the whole game because you only have 18 snaps on defense. How do they have this rotation of Odom and Hufanga and Mustafa? I like that they were getting Mustafa some reps. I think he got some very valuable reps in there as far as what they were, what he had in there, because he had some moments to really learn of what he was not doing well. Now, on the Fred Warner interception, we were in what's called cover 4 tricks, and he was the trick safety, which means it's tricks because he's cross, it's X, it's TRIX, and TRI meaning like to the trip side, and then X for cross key. So it's a safety that's cross keying to the trips receiver side, and he's doing that. So he was, if Fred Warner had not picked that ball off, Mustafa would have absolutely demolished the receiver on that post route because he picked it up. Now, his eyes were never back to the quarterback. That's where I would like to a little bit differently, like peek and see. Because if he had and Fred Warner hadn't intercepted that ball, he would have got an interception. But his eyes never turned to look for the ball. He was straight looking to light that receiver up. Because I remember on the broadcast, whoever it was, I can't remember who was calling the game, but they were like, if Fred Warner doesn't pick the ball off, I think the other safety does. No, he never looked back for the ball. It would have been purely a light up shot. He was going for the home run ball on that one. But it'd be interesting to see how that safety deal is there, but I think we force a turnover. I do think the Rams, somehow get a touchdown. either on a negative play from us, or they're able to put one drive together. Usually McVay is able to do one really like 14, 15, 16 play long drive against us in the game. It's like one of those that makes you just throw up your hands and be like, we suck. He always has one of those against us in a game. They're going to get one, but I do think this is a 2-score game. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be on a Victory Monday saying, I only had us to win by 1 possession. I was absolutely wrong. I would love to say that. So to all you ladies watching, understand you have a man here that is happy to apologize. So that goes a long way. So tell your friends,
Adam's
ladies,
shooting his shot, man.
Hey, I've heard that a lot of guys don't do that. And so, but yes, again, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you choose to listen, I will tell you the most fun way to watch actually though is definitely gonna be on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so that you can be with us in the chat along with we have about 25 regulars, I'd say at least, that we love hanging out with. So be sure you watch us on YouTube. It's the most fun way to watch. So we will catch you again Monday. Hit the notification bell so also when Johnny drops his videos on just breaking down the film, the whys and hows of the game. Man, I gotta go back to sleep for a little bit to make sure I can rest up for the game against our home game.
Look, and I will take the blame for last week. Normally, I do nachos of some kind. That's my game day ritual. Week 1, I was trying to be a little healthier, not make the giant plate of nachos. I did like a nacho dip sort of thing, but I didn't do any of that for the Minnesota game. So that's on me. I'll be better. I've got to be better. I've got to do it for the faithful. I will do some sort of nacho thing this week, and we'll get back to 49ers identity, which is the nachos.
Okay, we'll love to hear more about that on our Victory Monday. So, man, we say stay safe and stay healthy. That's why I need to get some rest and drink some more water. I will maybe take another one of these on Sunday or Monday and see how I do. But in the meantime, like I said, we always say stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.